All right, let's talk about youth unemployment. But we're going to look at it from a totally different angle today. Forget all the usual stuff you hear about the economy or what big companies should be doing. What if the key to solving it is actually a lot closer to home? Let's get into this pretty radical viewpoint.
Whenever you're unemployed, it's the first question that pops into your head, right? Who's to blame? Is it society? Are companies just not hiring? Is the government failing us? Those are the usual suspects we always point to. But the perspective we're digging into today, well, it throws a huge curveball at all of that. And boom, here it is. This is the big idea. When you're unemployed, this philosophy says, the responsibility is split three ways. Society gets 30%, companies get 30%, and a whopping 40% lands on you. And I know, that number probably makes you do a double take. 40%? That feels kind of high, doesn't it? So let's break down where that number even comes from. Okay, so how on earth did we land on 40%? It's not just a random number they pulled out of a hat. It's actually based on a core principle, a whole new rule for how to play the blame game. And it's framed as this fundamental law for solving pretty much any problem. So they call this the 40-30-30 absolute law. And the idea is actually pretty simple when you think about it. It says that whoever is feeling the most pain, the most frustration from a problem, well, they automatically get the biggest piece of the responsibility pie for fixing it. That's the 40%. So if a company is about to go under, it's on them. If the government's in a mess, it's on them. And yep, if you're the one who's unemployed and feeling that frustration, then that 40%, it's yours. And this is the absolute key takeaway from this whole philosophy. Complaining about the other 60%, the part that belongs to society and companies, it's basically pointless until you've completely sorted out your own 40%. The only place you can actually start is by looking inward. So it's a total shift, right? Away from blaming everyone else and towards analyzing yourself first. Okay, so you've accepted your 40%. What now? How does that actually help you find a job? Well, this is where it gets really interesting because it completely changes your mindset. It forces you to see the difference between being a work seeker versus a money seeker. And it all boils down to this one question. It sounds almost too simple, but honestly, everything hangs on how you answer it. Are you here to earn money or are you here to work? Are you actually looking for a role to fill, something to do, or are you just trying to get a paycheck? According to this view, that distinction makes all the difference in the world. So let's look at the breakdown. On one side, you've got the work seeker. This person gets that society is like a big machine with lots of different jobs that need doing. They're trying to figure out where they can fit in and be useful. And because they're looking to contribute, society has a spot for them. But then you've got the money seeker. They're only thinking about what's in it for them. The argument here is that society doesn't just exist to hand out cash. So if that's all you're after, well, there are no openings for that job. Okay, I can already hear what some of you might be thinking. What about all those 3R jobs? The difficult, dirty, and dangerous ones. Aren't there plenty of those to go around? And this is where the speaker's take gets really controversial. Probably the most debated part of this whole idea.
From this point of view, those jobs are just not meant for the current generation of educated young people in Korea. The argument is that there's a sort of natural, social, and economic flow. Those roles, they say, are for workers from developing countries who need that opportunity. And if an educated young Korean takes one of those jobs, it actually messes up that whole system. Plus, think about it. Your entire education, all those years in high school and university, was it really to prepare you for that kind of work? The claim is, no, it wasn't.
And this idea of a specific social order, it opens up a much bigger point. The argument goes that the career advice that works in, say, the United States just won't fly in Korea. Why? Because the societies are built on fundamentally different foundations. And get this, here's a claim that's definitely meant to shake things up. If you're in your 20s and you launch a startup in Korea, you are basically guaranteed to fail. Yeah, even if you get off to a good start, it's not going to last. Now, that completely goes against the whole Silicon Valley boy genius story we all know, so what's the logic here? It all comes down to this core difference. The West is painted as a purely capitalist society. If you've got the money and the right documents, sure, a 10-year-old could technically be a CEO. But Korea, this view argues, is what's called a moralistic society. And here, respect isn't just about a title or how much money you have. It's earned through experience, through age, through proper conduct. A young CEO just doesn't have the credibility. They're not seen as the real deal. So what does that mean? It means any success a young person has with a startup here is seen as a bit of an illusion. It's not really because they're a genius. It's because the older, more experienced people around them are kind of letting them succeed, giving them a pass. But that support system, that goodwill, it's not permanent. The argument is, eventually reality will hit, that support will fade, and the whole thing will come crashing down. Okay, so if you're not supposed to launch a startup when you're young, and you're not supposed to take one of those 3D jobs, what are you supposed to do? Well, according to this philosophy, there is a very clear, very specific right path. A timeline, really. And the claim is, if you follow it, you have an almost perfect chance of success. It's basically a 3-stage plan for your career. First, your 20s. Your job here isn't to be the boss. Your job is to get a job so you can study society. Learn the ropes, see how things really work from the inside. Then you hit your 30s. Now you take all that knowledge and you use it to get some serious, real-world experience. And only then, after you've put in those 2 decades of prep work, when you're in your 40s, now you're finally ready to go out and launch your own business. And the success rate for people who actually follow this patient step-by-step path? A staggering 97%. I mean, think about that. The idea is that by learning first, then doing, and only then leading, you're working with the grain of society, not against it. You're following the unwritten rules, and that's what practically guarantees you'll succeed. So, there you have it. A pretty radical way of looking at careers, right? One that totally flips the script on the get-rich-quick startup dream. It suggests that real success isn't about breaking the rules, but about understanding and mastering them over time. And that brings us all the way back to where we started. After hearing all this, how does that pie chart look to you now? What are you going to do with your 40%?